Joining us now on PHNX Cardinals, fresh off his touchdown performance en route to a 28-27 dub, Arizona Cardinals over Miami. First place Cardinals, first place Michael Wilson joins the program. Mike, heard it in the locker room. JG, party's on this week. No practice, nothing till Wednesday. What are you doing to fill your free time, my guy?
Oh, man. Honestly, I feel like my day-to-day hasn't changed much. Still just taking advantage of the extra time and doing more treatments, still kind of hanging around the facility, getting in the tubs, getting in the sauna, Normatec, laser, massages, just trying to fill my day with more film study and trying to make up for that time. But it definitely is nice not having to be at the facility all day, and catching up on sleep. That's another thing. But haven't really done too much. Trying to keep the game schedule similar to most weeks. But yeah, it was nice not being in the facility all day from 7 o'clock until whatever time we leave.
Well, yeah, 2 gigantic wins in 6 days, and my co-host alluding to what we overheard the head coach, deliver to you guys post game. And he also, I think I overheard him say, "Fire up the Skrilla." Is that what's on the Ox these days?
Yeah, JG. It just like one would say because of his age, like he might not be in tune to what the players like to listen to, but he's tuned in all the Future and the Drake and the Rick Ross. Like he loves all the hip and in music. So it's fun to have a true players coach.
Well, let's talk about the 2-win streak. Mike, it's been a second since we've caught up with you. Once upon a time, 2-4. We were chatting off air. That's how quick this league can change. Yeah. You find yourself 4-4, 2-0 against the NFC West, by the way, and in first place as we sit here now. Like, I know it's cliche to say, like, what's changed in the past 2 weeks, but how have you guys find a way to beat a good Charger team on Monday night and then fly out east 6 days later and win a game? Like, historically, since we've been covering this team, the Cardinals do not win these kind of games. And so It was great to see you guys come out on top. We were in the building. Like, that situation with Tua was very emotional, right? It could have been easy for the Cardinals. You guys just be like, we got our dub Monday. We're good. What's been the biggest difference here the last 2 weeks?
That's a great question. That's a really good question. Truthfully, I would say our team, offensively, defensively, special teams wise, has been very inconsistent. I would say that's the theme of where we were at prior to the last 2 weeks. Is we play one really good game, and the next week we look asleep. Come back with a big time win, the next week not really show up or not have an identity offensively and defensively. And I think Drew Petzing made a point that we play our best ball offensively when we have a sense of urgency and sort of a chip on our shoulder. And I think carrying that mentality day to day and operationally throughout the week and mentally, having that mental model and that mental frame has helped us sort of thug out these wins. And I think you've seen more of a sense of urgency in the last 2 games with our off-ball effort. Like the Chargers game, if we don't recover those fumbles, we lose that football game. Or if James doesn't, put the extra effort in to knock the ball loose after an interception, myself recover the ball, Trey McBride recover the ball. Like, those plays matter. Starling Thomas, gave up the explosive, came back, knocked the ball. Like, if none of those plays happen, we don't win that football game. Same thing with the Dolphins. Like, our urgency as a team, I feel like that was what was different than probably the Green Bay game, the Commanders game. Our sense of urgency and our effort tagged along with our attention to detail is just, I think that's what's sort of pushed our competitive stamina to thug out these the victories that came down to the wire.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thug out those victories. That's great. And you bring up the play that it doesn't really show up. It shows up in the box score. You get a fumble recovery. James punches it out. He looks like he should be coming off the edge for you guys. Unbelievable play there. Yeah. And then, you talked about this in the locker room last week, kind of get lost in the shuffle, but falling on that and then falling on top of you was about 330 pounds. Are you okay after that?
Oh my God. I was talking with our head trainer, Drew. I was telling, my family, I'm like, if he fell on my shoulder, I probably could have been done for the season. Like, thank God he fell on my legs because he was running full speed, 330 pounds. I was so fortunate after that. I'm like, thank God he fell on my legs, because if he fell on my upper body, I don't know that we'd be having this conversation right now. But yeah, those are the things that win games, and that's part of the job description. If you want to be a starter on our team, you have to play with high effort, and sometimes you have to do dirty work and put your body on the line, and maybe things that don't look pretty and you don't get glory for, but that type of stuff helps win games. So I would do that 10 out of 10 times if I needed to.
Mike, let's talk about this passing game that really took off for the first time in a hot minute against Miami. And it's easy for us, just a couple of slappies up here, to be like, hey, they have all the pieces. They've got a top 10 quarterback. Like, where's the production, right? And sometimes, and you've admitted this talking to us, like, make it harder than it needs to be. And then on Sunday, when you had to have it, boom, K1 goes into what I think is, top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL. With respect to Tua, I thought the gap was very large between the two quarterbacks that we saw in person. Like, what changed on Sunday with this passing game? Did you guys go into this matchup like a conservative effort? We're going to throw the ball downfield. We're going to get back to these chunk plays, because, when Kyler's cooking like that, he's one of the best deep ball throwers in the NFL.
Absolutely. It's another great question. I was asked this question, I think yesterday. I don't necessarily think our mental frame and game plan changed from last week to this week, or from prior weeks to this week. I think we just did a better job of executing, of making the throws that need to be made, winning the one-on-one battles, and then coming down with contested catches. I think a lot of our explosive plays came down to contested catches, and I think Kyler did a great job of seeing the open man. And also, truthfully, there was a lot of breakdown in Miami's defense. Like, we had guys more open on the same plays that we've been running than we had in prior weeks. And I knew I had been saying that it was only a matter of time. Like, we worked really, really hard, and were intentional and deliberate from April of earlier this year, through training camp, through OTAs, through mini camp, through throwing at high schools during the summer and the spring. Like, our time on task and our reps that we've had has been, like, we have really been on it. And when you operate like that, the results are going to show up one way or another. I told you guys, I can't tell you when that game is going to happen, but it's going to happen at some point. And I think everyone just showed up to play, and it was a great game from the OC standpoint, from Kyler's standpoint, from the offensive line standpoint, to the receivers making catches standpoint. Everything just clicked. And I think that's giving everyone confidence that, hey, look, this is what it needs to look like, and can look like that, and can look like if we're firing on all cylinders. So I think we all have a lot of confidence going, into week 9, that this is what it needs to look like from here on out. And obviously that's not going to be the result every game, but at least we have a standard to look at.
I need to step my game up with my co-hosts getting too gross. That's a great question. I mean, don't give him that much credit. It's he gets a big head about it. But like, you had only 3 offensive drives in the first half, but it did seem like there was some, not necessarily momentum, but confidence that you guys were going to keep it going. Like, the drives you did have seemed to move the football. Was there any time at some point that you guys were like, we're going to have our opportunities in this game? You said that the coverage there from Miami was presenting those opportunities. When did you guys know that you could maybe break out in this game, just given, more looks?
Honestly, I felt like from the first drive, I think when you play in games, you sort of get a feel of how the game is going to go. And I felt like in this game, things are going to be open. And I didn't get that same feeling against the Commanders. But I can't articulate to you why I felt like that. I just knew when I was out there, like, that we were going to win the game and have an opportunity to win the game if we execute, and we did. I wish I could articulate better how I knew that, but the flow of the game and the energy within the team and the coaches, I don't think anyone had any self-doubt that we weren't going to come out and win that football game and have opportunities to do so. But yeah, I think that was a big time win, because Miami's roster, they've got some talented players, some all-pro, some premier players. When you think about the best players in each position, they have one of those guys typically in every position group that is a premier guy in the face of the NFL. So for us to gut out that win on a short week in Miami, I think that's huge for the franchise and for our team. So I'm proud of the belief, and I think this win goes to show the makeup of the team and also the what great coaches we have. But yeah, I think it's a testament to the makeup and the quality of character we have within the locker room.
Somehow, Mike, with the amount of star power that you guys are developing on this team, like I think it's easy to forget for the casuals out there just how good Trey McBride is at football.
Absolutely.
Like, it's funny, like you guys weren't drafted at the same time, but it almost feels like you guys came up together last year. Trey, his first year under Cliff, didn't see a lot of time until the end of the year. Yeah. And then you guys worked your way up the depth chart almost simultaneously during JG's first year. Like what makes him so good? Like he's being discussed now with the George Kittles of the world. And then you watch that performance Sunday and you're like, well, of course this guy's one of the best.
For sure. That's another great question. I'd say Trey has an interesting story. Being second round pick, he was the first tight end taken in the 22 draft. And he told me that his first game with the Cardinals was devastating because he was healthy and active as a second round pick. And he said that was emotional for him, and it was pretty like a confidence it was draining for his confidence. And then his role, because he was sitting by Zach Ertz, he barely played like most of the season. He's kind of tight end 2, tight end 3. I think he barely had 300 yards his first year. And then he did also start out the year a little slow. I think it wasn't until week 8 when Ertz went down against the Seahawks. When we played against Baltimore, he went for 100 yards. And I think like Trey's always been a great talent, but a lot of times it's opportunity, it's targets. That's what comes with the territory being a pass catcher. And I think this system and this scheme fits his and highlights his abilities really well. And he's able to sort of capitalize on his opportunity. But he's a phenomenal player. He makes really hard plays look easy. That's what great players do. Some of the catches he can make in traffic. He's almost like a security blanket to Kyler. Feels like every time they throw him the ball, he's either wide open or he's making a hard catch across the middle. Doesn't drop any balls. Plays extremely hard. Is a great teammate. He deserves all the credit that he gets because he is a premier guy. Like even the hurdle that he had in the game, like that type of stuff is extremely hard to do. And he's 250 pounds. Like he's a great athlete. But yeah, his ascension has been fun to watch because he's also a really good person. And so I think he's going to continue to ascend and continue to make tough catches and make wild plays and help our team win big time football games.
I'm loving this interview, except for the fact that Johnny's texting me on the side unrepeatable stuff about how you just
you're free to leave, bud, if you got something else going on.
No.
You know, Trey, he mentioned last year when he was having that breakout season, like sometimes he geeks out on the field. Like that's his kind of his place. Like, is there any examples you can share with us where Trey's, maybe a little extra out there on the field and you guys are like, whoa, this guy is something else?
Yeah, for a guy that's a quiet and nice guy, he talks a lot of smack. Like after every time he has a catch, just watch him. He's probably, if it's a nice catch, he's looking at the sideline. You guys watched his mic'd up video when he caught that crazy catch against the Rams, and he was telling, one of them, he said, "Hey, I'm him. I'm him" to the guy. So he's just has uber confidence, and he's not afraid to let other sidelines, other players, even other coaches, that he's really like that. So
yeah, he is a specimen. You guys have so much talent on this offense that I think, the end result on Sunday, like that's what we thought Cardinal games were going to look like all year. But, I know you guys want to win every game. You're 4-4 after facing what a lot of people assume was the toughest schedule in the NFL. Yeah. And I'm not going to say it lightens up now, but there are some opportunities here for you guys, I think, to go on a little bit of a run. Looking ahead now to the rest of this season, you're in first place. Like, does that get discussed with your teammates? Do you talk about that? Or is it literally just like, hey, we got to win this game on Sunday against the Bears?
Yeah, I think it's the last option you said. I think it's just we have to win this game. And I think the nice thing about the position we're sitting in is we control our own destiny. We're not looking for other teams to win or lose games. As long as we keep winning, we know we're going to be in a good spot and retain first place, which is good and a good feeling. But there's not much discussion. Maybe like, man, we're really in first place. Like, that's crazy that we were 2 weeks ago, what the narratives were 2 weeks ago to now. But not much changes in the building, whether we win or lose. Like I said, I think we kind of figured out what our mental frame needs to be is urgency and having a chip on our shoulder and making sure we understand that every game in the NFL is a must win. We have to show up week to week, and teams aren't going to lay down and just give us the game. We have to go take it.
From a player's perspective, of course, you guys love to go to war for each other out there. From 1 to 53, even the guys on the practice squad that are putting in the work, throughout the week, and the coaching staff, the training staff. What do you guys even think or entertain? Like, what would it mean if your general manager made a move to improve this roster to the players in that locker room?
That's a good question. Truthfully, I would say that, at least from my standpoint, I never think about, like, put my mind inside of the GM and think, okay, what players or roster, like what pieces do I need to add? I think everyone is very confident in the guys that we have in our building because we see the work they put in and day out. And also that's not my role to think about, hey, we need to add, a corner, we need to add a D lineman or offensive lineman or another receiver. Like, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about how can I be the best teammate and be the best player I can be day in and day out. And I think that's where sort of the general mind of the team sits. Because I have great trust in Monty and our scouting department. I know they literally never leave the building. So I'm sure Monty has thought through every single scenario that the media puts out and more, right?
Yeah.
So he's definitely going to make the best decision for the organization and the franchise. And I think that has already showed up. We've already won as many games as we won in the last 2 years. We're 8 games through the season. So what Monty and JG are doing they're turning around the franchise from where we were last year and a couple years ago.
Mike, you once told us on a live show that you felt like you're indirectly or directly going to play a part in Kyler Murray's legacy.
Absolutely.
And now we fast forward. Now he's third in QBR. He's having his most efficient season ever. We never lost hope here on this podcast, and I know you've been a staunch supporter of him. Is it validating? Is it vindicating to watch him perform like he has been this season, to really just kind of stick it to everybody externally that opted to say things about a guy who puts in a ton of time, who is an absolute freak show at the quarterback position, come out and play the way he's playing?
Absolutely. That's a great point and a great question. Yeah, it's been a joy to watch. I think Kyler's one of the most misunderstood superstars in all of sports, and it's taken more flack than he needs to. But for a guy who absolutely loves football, dies, breathes, and lives football, every decision he makes in his personal life and obviously in the locker room is with the intention of, is this decision going to help me become great? And he truly lives his life like that. So it's been fun to see him sort of regain some of the respect that he deserves, and to know that I'm playing a part in that. But also at the same time, as good as he's played, and I think as well as we've done with our opportunity, we're not even close to where we can be. And there's still so much meat that's been left on the bone. So it's been exciting, but I know that we haven't even touched the surface yet. And we're only going to continue to get better, which is also very exciting. But also, I want to say something about what I absolutely love about our receiver room is oftentimes you'll see guys pout when they don't get targets, pout when they don't get the ball, and make it about themselves. Like, you'll never have to worry about that with any of our receivers, which I think is healthy. And I think that wins football games, because the offensive coordinator is not thinking about calling plays for a certain player to force targets. Kyler's not forcing targets to anyone, and we're not trying to manufacture guys to have good games. It sort of happens naturally. And whether Marv has 100, I have 100, Greg has 8 catches, 100 yards. Like, we're all going to feel the same way after a game, especially if we get a win. And we're just going to be happy for each other. With the addition of Zay Jones coming back, I know he'd probably love to have more targets, but his attitude and his leadership after the game, look, you would have thought he had 100 yards, how happy he was. And I just want to sort of give credit back to Monty, our receivers coach, our offensive coordinator, JG, for building our room, because I think having a healthy receiver room, especially, that alone can help you win games when you don't have to worry about guys' ego and attitude if they're not getting the ball.
I'm convinced you guys are texting each other on the side. There's collusion going on as far as Johnny.
We can, Mike, we can just do this if we want to do that. I think that could be more appropriate here. Now we'll bring back my guy, Bo Brock.
We'll end it on it. I mean, I think that's an incredible point. Like, Greg and Zay both came up with huge catches in that game. Didn't get a ton of targets, but each of them, when their number was called, they produced and put you guys in a huge position. And talking about things you kind of spoke into existence or to fruition. I mean, we were talking about Marv a couple weeks ago, and you're like, at some point it's going to click and he's going to get 10 catches, 100 yards and 2 tutties. And, he had the performance against the Rams, but it was big time catch after big time catch, 6 receptions, 111 and the touchdown. I mean,
what do you have? 7 targets too?
7 targets. It was just a go route that they couldn't connect on. Yeah. I mean, what have you seen? Drew wouldn't give us too much. He said Marv was the same guy he's been the entire time. And it just, what did you see?
Yeah, great question. I would align with what Drew said, in that his process and his attitude hasn't changed day to day. Like, even when I saw him yesterday and today, he showed up the same way. I think he had 20-something yards against the Chargers, and he had 100 and whatever on Sunday. His attitude and his preparation looks the same. That's the makeup of a great player. So I definitely don't appreciate when people say negative things about him because of one game or one play. He's a phenomenal person and a phenomenal player, and he's 8 games into his rookie year, and he's already got 5 touchdowns. Like, he's a really, really good player, and it's hard to perform at the level he's performing at for anyone, let alone a rookie. So I think people just need to give him grace, give him time. He is going to be a All-Pro or a Pro Bowler at some point in his career, whether that's this year, next year, or the year after. He's one of the most talented players I've ever been around. So I'm not surprised at all. I'm not. Every time I see something negative about him on social media, I just laugh, because a lot of people don't really know what they're talking about. And I think people just want to say things to get attention, and you can't feed into any of that. He does a good job of not letting that bother him.
Michael Wilson, so generous with his time, fresh off his touchdown reception. Big win for the Arizona Cardinals, moving to 4-4. First place as they host the Chicago Bears this Sunday in what is unequivocally, I know, Michael, a very highly anticipated game. These tickets have been one of the hottest commodities in the desert since this summer. A lot of people from Illinois, a lot of people here in Arizona are excited to watch K1 versus Caleb Williams. We appreciate the time, my friend. Continued success on the field.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me on the show.
We all silly like the mayor.